Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Ethan.
And I'm Rick.
And in today's episode is our 100th episode special.
Woo! 100 episodes!
Here at Roster United, we are super excited. We can't believe it. 100 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. Right? 100 is a big number. For us, at least. We're super excited. Super happy, really, to be in this situation. In today's episode, we have a couple of segments planned out for you all. It's going to be very, very special. But we will go through one of them at a time, unveiling each one as a surprise, basically. Like a small little present for you all. Super excited, obviously. So, man. I mean, how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, this is great. Been waiting. That's why we're a little delayed on this episode. We wanted to have the time to record it all. We're using this episode to kind of, as Ethan mentioned, use some new segments that we'll probably use as either future podcast episodes or part of other episodes. So we're going to unveil definitely some new, maybe ongoing features that we're going to, ways to talk about games and just different angles.
Yeah, and really our style, right? Because there are a lot of podcasts out there that talk about board games. We want to take that in our approach. We want to do it our way, and we hope that's a way that all of you would like to listen to. So
and there's some reasons for that, right? I mean, one, we do this because we just like board games and it's a hobby and we love to talk about it and it's just fun to get on and kind of share.
Yeah.
But we also know out there's different tastes of folks, and there's a lot bigger podcasts and that's not why we're in for it. But folks might enjoy or have similar taste to us. So when we find games and we like them or we dislike them, maybe if your tastes match up, you enjoy hearing us talk about games the way what we like.
Absolutely. And you know what? Speaking about tastes, let's start off this amazing episode with a banger. This is something I've been wanting to do for a long time and share with all of you on the podcast here. We are going to do our top 10 board games of all time. All right? These are 10 games that we love. We absolutely love. Obviously, they're in the top 10.
As of September 2024, because it'll probably change in January. Who knows?
It probably will. Maybe next week it'll be a completely different.
Older games. A lot of mine have been around a while. So
some of mine have. Some of them are more recent. So
Cult of the New. That's Cult of the New.
Thank you.
Number one game.
There you
Cult
go.
Of the New.
Anyway, so we'll go through that.
Some of mine have been around a while. Your number one game just came out.
That is true, and I will explain to you why it's my number one game here in a little bit. So let's begin here with our number 10 game of all time. I'll give you the honors.
All right. Well, my number 10 game is actually your number 9. So why don't I'll mention it, but we'll talk a little bit more deeper in it the next one. My number 10 game is Everdell. Just give everybody a little bit of a rundown. Everdell is you're set in this cozy little city that you're kind of building. And it's all these, anamorphic, I can't say it, a bunch of animals, right? So you got a post office, and the delivery, the postman is a pigeon, right? So you're trying to build this tableau of like 16 cards or 15 cards in your area, and they all synchronize, and you get more bonus points, and it's just really cool. It's really cool. But we can get into a little bit more about why I like it so much when we get to yours.
That's your number 10.
What's your number 10? What's your number 10?
My number 10 is a game that has to be in the top 10 just because it's such a great game. But I've only played it a couple of times, so that's why it's at number 10. I'm sure it'll be higher if I play it a little bit more. Is Brass. Brass, obviously, is a game. Very popular game. A lot of people love it. It's number 1 on Board Game Geek for a reason. It's super good.
Fantastic game.
In the game, I believe, if I recall, you are buying train tracks, I believe, right? Or what are you doing?
No. So in Brass, what you're doing is you're manufacturing a couple of different things, booze and things like that. Yeah. But the trick in the game is it's complex Euro. And at the beginning, you kind of transport your stuff through, I believe, like canals and stuff. But then you flip over to railroads.
That's
in the second half of the game.
That's right. Yes.
And it's just this economic game, and how when you get your stuff to market. It's such a great game.
And just the decisions. I remember because again, it's been a couple of years, I would say, since last we've played this. But I just remember playing it. I'm just like, wow, this game is fantastic. The decisions you make, obviously it's a Euro game, right? So there's going to be a lot of decisions, a lot of different ways to score points, and Brass does it in such a unique way, and I just love the feel of Brass. I like, sort of that noir, black and white, 1920s sort of film kind of things. And this feels clear, like it, right?
We need to be clear, though, because there's two Brass. And the Brass that we're talking about
is Birmingham.
Brass Birmingham.
That's right,
because,
Brass Birmingham.
Yeah, and that's the one that's number one on Board Game Geek. That's the one that kind of it's a Martin Wallace game, but they kind of added to it off the original. And it's just... Yeah, like you said, there's two sides to the board. There's a daytime kind of side, and a nighttime kind of side.
That's right.
And that nighttime art and stuff is just sick.
It's fantastic.
So good.
It's a great game, and honestly, that has to be a game that we have to play here very soon. I'm going to say it right here on the podcast, so we have proof of it. We have to play that game next. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, you got the Canal era and the rail era, and you're trying to, I think you're maybe shipping like cotton and booze and things like that. It's just, it's so good. I want to play it right now.
Absolutely.
But, I think the
and
Watch
you
It
upgrade
Played...
your pieces as well.
Yeah, and I think the Watch It Played video from Rodney, though, is like 50 minutes or an hour long to teach you how to play this game.
It's a heavy game.
It's ridiculously heavy, but it's so fun, though.
It is really fun.
It's a masterpiece. But it's the sequel from the original.
Yeah.
The one we're talking about is Brass Birmingham.
And that's why it's my number 10 right there for that reason. Number 9. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Anachrony by Mind Clash Games. I love me some Anachrony.
That's right.
So an Anachrony, basically what's happening is your planet is going to be destroyed, and you're trying to get off the planet, but what's happening, though, is you're in communication with the future.
Yeah.
So you have the ability to send stuff back to yourself to help you along in the game. And you're basically trying to make sure you got everything ready. There's the main part of the planet. There's some corruption where you've got to go to the central part. So you got to get into these suits, and you're trying to, go out and collect stuff in the suit and send out your workers, but also keep your colony going. But you're taking stuff back with you. Back with you from the future. And
yes.
And if you don't replace that by the end of the game, then there's a paradox, and that causes you more problems. And I'm not going to go into a huge in-depth analysis of this game, but I just like you'll notice some trends on this list for me. I got a pretty wide breadth. I like some hard Euros, some heavy-duty, thinky Euros, but as long as they're not just hard and complex just to be complex. Like, I like some of the Vitalis Lacerda games you'll see. I like them, but some of them, the recent ones especially, have gotten just almost complex to be complex. It's like, it doesn't necessarily add anything.
Yeah.
But I think Anachrony's great. Of course, we got these great meeples of the actual pods you're sending out, the mechs that you're sending out, you drop your guy into and all that. It's just the decisions, the juicy timing on it, how you're interacting with the other players on getting to your spots. There's some worker placement, the way it kind of works in there. And I'm obviously oversimplifying it, but that mentality, and then to be able to send yourself stuff from the future, but make sure you cover it before the end of the game. Oh, it's just so good. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting game. We've played it, and it's awesome.
It's awesome.
It's really neat. That's amazing. My number 9 is Everdell, which was your number 10, Everdell was number 10. That's right.
Yep.
In Everdell, like you've mentioned as well, you're in a city. Every character is a critter, an animal, squirrels, turtles, things like that.
And it's worker placement.
It's a worker placement tableau building game. You're playing in different seasons of the game, placing your workers out, getting wood, gems, pebbles. There's like 100 expansions for the game that adds so much more decision making with just so many short rounds. There's 4 rounds, and at least in the base game, those rounds go by pretty quickly. But what's cool about it is that you can only play 15 cards in your tableau, so trying to find and hold out sometimes on the best combinations to get you the most points at the end is really neat. There's a lot of awesome cards as well that you can play on your tableau or on others that blocks them from putting a spot on. And just really, I've had so much fun with it. I've played the digital version. I've played the physical version many, many times, and I've just enjoyed it. We've even played with a lot of the expansions, and they just add so much fun content to it. And I really love Everdell. I think it's a fantastic game.
Yeah, the other thing I like about Everdell that I just like when games do this, and Everdell does it one of the best, is it's got this slow ramp up. Mm-hmm. So you talked about it like, yeah, your first season, you've got 2 workers, you kind of put them out there, you get some materials, you get some resources, and that's kind of it. Mm-hmm. But you add some workers over the time automatically, but by the end, some of your last turns are like these gigantic, monstrous turns because you've got these combos that are letting you go do this, which lets you buy a card, which lets you go do this, which lets you go do that. So yeah, at the beginning, it's quick. The rounds are quick, but by the time of that 3rd round, you've got these turns that.
Yeah.
But they're not complicated. You've just been building to them this whole time.
Exactly.
And Everdell and the next game on my list do that so well. Mm-hmm. And it's great for new players because they can kind of start really quick and then they can see how it grows as you go along. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, it's got so many cool expansions that actually like latch onto the board. So the first one latched onto the left side of the board, and then the bottom, and then the right. And it just brought more cards and things, and it's just so cool. The replayability is awesome, just depending on what comes out. But it's a great game. I enjoy it.
It really is. It's just fantastic, and honestly, I recommend anyone who is kind of newer to games or even experienced to get this game. This game, above all of the other games, this game might be one of the entry points for you. Everdell is just beautiful to look at as well. It's set up on the table with the tree.
Gorgeous.
It's amazing.
The tree drives me nuts, but
it's
gorgeous art.
But it is
gorgeous.
It is a beautiful game. Absolutely. Well, let's go to our number 8. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is a game by Stonemaier Games called Tapestry. I really just enjoy Tapestry, and the games I put on my list are things I enjoy playing for whatever reason. There's lots of different reasons for them. Usually there's a hook why they made the list. Tapestry is a civilization game where you're starting from the Stone Age all the way up to modern times. And it's got a little bit of area control in there. But what's so cool about it is there's a couple of things. So what you're doing is you kind of have this track, and on your turn you can move up one of these 4 tracks in the base game. They've added one in the 5th game. You're moving up these tracks. So there's like a science track, like a military track, arts track, and you're just moving up one. You pick one and you move up that track. And depending where you go on the track, it may give you, more cards or things. And the other thing you're doing is you're building this tableau. Mm-hmm. So you've got your city in this tableau, and it's got basically a bunch of 9x9 grids on it. Mm-hmm. Looks like a giant Sudoku board. And then, some of those you can't build on. They've got, water or mountain or something in there. So what happens is you move up this track, and it might let you take a small hut off. And you've got huts that correspond to these tracks as well. These 1x1 little meeple houses. You'll take that off, and now you can put that on your tableau. Mm-hmm. But when you pulled that hut off the board, you might have uncovered another symbol that now lets you go do something else. So it's got one of these things that ramp up as well. Yeah. And then depending on how you move up, let's say you're moving up the economy track with your meeple there, and you just keep doing that, eventually you unlock other buildings if you're the first person to get there. Mm-hmm. And these buildings are painted meeples that take up large spots on your track, on your tableau board that you're building, your Sudoku board. Mm-hmm. And again, you get more points for how you're filling that up. You get more points for how you're doing the area control piece in the middle. You get more points for where you're advancing in your civilization.
Is it a Euro game?
I would say it's kind of a Euro-y,
right?
Euro-y civilization area control game. And all these things are balanced in there. And none of it's hard to learn per se. I don't feel. The rule book's like 4 pages. Mm-hmm. But, to get the higher scores, it's how you balance all these things.
Hard to master.
Yeah, and eventually you're like exploring space. You're pulling space cards out. And, it's just, it's so good. And I really just enjoy it. I enjoy that puzzle on the side with the Sudoku board that you're filling in. And I enjoy, which track am I going up, trying to balance all that. Mm-hmm. It's really awesome. I enjoy that game quite a bit.
Yeah, actually, I don't have sadly, Tapestry. Spoiler alert. And in my top 10 list, it's not that I didn't forget about that. It is one of the honorable mentions. But
it's probably something we should say, right?
But, yeah.
There are hundreds of games. I mean, I'm looking at 500 games in our room right now. To be in the top 10, if you're not number 10, that means it's a bad game. Doesn't mean we don't like it. No. There's a lot of games that aren't on our list that I wanted to put on my list.
Yeah.
Even to be a top 100 game, there's thousands of games out there. There's hundreds being released every year. At Gen Con, we just saw literally hundreds of new games. So, it's not that we don't like them, just for us, this is what's the cream of the crop.
And I do appreciate that you put Tapestry there, Stonemaier as well. Really good game, very neat. We've played it even with a couple of people as well, and man, their reactions to the game is really good. They really enjoy it as well. So I can see why that is in your top 10 right there. That's amazing. My number 8. Yes. My number 8 is Marvel United. The reason, obviously, is, I've played this game countless of times. I can't count how many times I've played this game. We've made a podcast. I made a podcast. Well, we started the podcast because of this game. Right now, set up on our table, looking in front of us, is this game. And what this game keeps on doing, Marvel United, is keep adding more content that is fresh, that keeps the game feeling new, but sort of like, I know what's going on, but at the same time, I have no idea. Recently, obviously, as we talked about on our latest episode, Marvel United Multiverse came out. If you haven't heard about that episode, go, listen to that episode. It was really exciting, really fun stuff. We have it all here. We have the X-Men content. We have the first set content, and it's just amazing how every character is different, how every villain is different. And even if they don't or aren't different specifically in the cards, they just feel different by the different rules that they have there. How the heroes win, the BAM effects of each villain, the special rules that they have, and it's just such a nice design. It's very neat, it's straightforward, but at the same time, just exciting. And this new set, specifically this new set, they've really brought so much more stuff that I'm just so anxious to try. And that is why Marvel United is my number 8, as well as it being super easy for newcomers, right? For players who don't play a whole lot of board games like we do, hobby-type games. Marvel United is a perfect fit for anybody, including even those who have played the game, who have played a lot of hobby games. This game is still amazing.
Yeah, I think you could say Marvel United is on the lower end of complexity. It's an easier game. It's fun to teach. It's Marvel. It's easy to get people into. I would say that what makes it stand out for me is what you said, is even with the simplistic mechanics of this game, they do make every hero and every villain feel very thematic. Every time we get a new box and we crack it open, they surprise me how they milk or just add a little mechanic that makes that villain fit perfect. And to me, that's where it's a master of design. Yeah,
and just really quickly, there's 4 core boxes out there, right? We have all of them because, we backed every set up, right, in Kickstarter. So we do get all the Kickstarters, core boxes, including the Spider-Geddon one. And it just seems like every core box they add something new, and it's just like, oh, wow, I thought the Spider-Geddon was my favorite core box. Now I'm playing the Multiverse box, and I haven't even played through all of it yet. And now I'm like, man, this might be my favorite core box. And imagine the expansions, countless expansions. So it's just super exciting. Getting a game that literally contains 200 or a little bit more than hero selections for you, more than 120 villains for you to play against. It's just incredible. So I really love Marvel United, and that is why it is on my number 8. Well, number 7, getting now closer, right, to that top 5. Number 7, go. You can go.
Yeah, for me, number 7, and this game and another game kind of bounce back and forth, but the reason this game makes it, the number 7 for me is Twilight Imperium 4. I have to have this just meaty 7-hour game on my list somewhere. Yes. Some 7-hour area control, civilization building, space opera game is what this thing is. And this thing you can accommodate up to like 8 to 10 players. You get all these cool factions that are just made up factions that Twilight Imperium, that Fantasy Flight did. They're all cool. It's sci-fi, and it's just what you expect. It's one of these old, classic, timey kind of games. It doesn't play like that. It's got a lot of modern mechanics in it, but it's just one of those things where it takes you 6-7 hours to get through it.
It's
and
incredible.
You're growing through the galaxy, and you're building up your armada, and you're advancing technologies, and you're having these giant battles, and you're building up your ships, and you can go down different tracks of advancement to make your civilization better. The map is huge. I just love it. And the game that I kind of that gives me the same feel, and I wish I could put here instead of this, is Star Trek Ascendancy. It's probably on my honorable mention list.
Yeah.
And the reason with Star Trek Ascendancy a little bit is I like Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I love the theme better. This is more, I don't want to call it a generic theme. It's a theme that only exists in this game, and I'm a Star Trek fan. And Star Trek does such a great job, Star Trek Ascendancy, with the different civilizations and making them feel. But the rules in it are just so convoluted. And every time I got to sit down and play it, it just seems like it's so much effort. And if Gale's Force 9 could just fix that, I would play it more. And it's also a 9-10 hour game too, even with just 3 players.
Yeah.
So Twilight Imperium takes that spot for me just because, again, I think it's just a little more refined. It's still huge, don't get me wrong, but it's great. It's epic. Absolutely. It takes up the whole table.
It's fantastic.
You play 4, 5, 6 people. It's an amazing. We've done that where we had friends. We play like 8 people, just take a day. And man, I mean, that's
an entire day.
An entire day.
I'm not lying.
That's a good day.
I was young when you play. I was really young. I wasn't really too into 10-hour board games back then. I was probably like, what,
today
8, 9?
Today you'd show up for that.
Oh, I would now. But I was like 8, 9 one time, and you played, right, with a couple of friends. They were a little older. And, man, it was all day. I mean, literally, I don't even know. I don't remember when we got there, but I remember coming back, and it was night, and I was tired, so it was crazy. That game is awesome, and I won't talk about a whole lot, because it is later on my list.
Yeah, sorry, I probably shouldn't have got into it.
No, it's fine. I have a lot more other points in there, too. Don't
number
worry
7.
about that.
What's your number 7?
Don't worry about that. Number 7 for me used to be my number 1 game, and it is Dune Imperium. Number 7. Dune Imperium. Wow, what can I say? Dune Imperium came out right when the first Dune movie in 2020, I believe, came out. Super excited. It was kind of like, wow, kind of cool event. Love the movie, love the board game. Played the board game. It's made by Direwolf. And just the mechanics of this game is just fantastic. Mixing the deck building with the worker placement, even with a little bit of area control and trying to gain the spice, as well as trying to gain, I believe, the political places as well. And it's just so cool how they put it all together. I love the great ideas, decisions that you can make in the game. I like that the worker placement really feels, you're basically worker placement to gain cards to do your deck building. So it really plays off again with each other amazing. And I love Dune. I love the theme of it. And I love that game so much. And that was also about the time when what's it called? The Raiders of
Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, Lost Ruins of Arnak, excuse me. Which is almost kind of the same. It's the same mechanics. Very similar
shtick where it had deck building and worker placement.
Exactly, and those two games kind of came out towards the same time around there, and there was a huge competition of which one is better. And for me, it was just no comparison. I thought Dune Imperium was way better than Lost Ruins of Arnak, and for a good reason. It's a fantastic game. You can buy it at Target. And I do recommend it. It is a little heavier than... It is heavier. I won't lie to you there. But once you got the rules set down, it's just a blast to play. I have such a great time playing it. I get into the theme of it really awesome. And just the different equipments and cars you get. It feels like it was meant to be. It really does. So that is my number 7. Number 6. What is your number 6?
Number 6 for me is a game from Capstone Games, super popular game right now, and that's Ark Nova. Ark Nova, to me, was kind of a terraforming Mars killer, the way it works. Mm-hmm. You're basically building a zoo, is what you're doing. So you're taking it, and you're You're trying to build the zoo out, and I love some of the mechanics, and I won't talk about it too much because maybe we'll get a chance to talk about it a little bit later.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Ark Nova's awesome. So, yeah, we will talk about it later. Anyway, my number 6 is Rococo. This also used to be one of my favorite games, and again, for a very good reason. Rococo is a area control game.
About making dresses.
It's
which so cool, though. It is really good.
I get it. Right, making dresses. Wait, back it up a little bit. Before, I thought, this is interesting. I don't know. But, we recently played Combine EV as well. This is the same, is it?
No, it's not.
It's the same company
the reason we get it is Rococo is an older game made. And then Eagle Griffin Games has kind of taken this shtick of making very high-end versions. So they're almost exclusively making Vital Lacerda's games.
Yes.
They went back and remade a bunch of them with more of a deluxeified version. Rococo is one they went back and deluxeified, and that's the version we've got. But it's that same kind of bigger box, and that's why it seems like it comes from him.
And look, I don't know where to start with this game because it's just amazing. But like the tokens, the chips, the little pins, what's the material that they use for the dresses, whatever that is called. Just everything about just that feel of building your dress. Yes, I said that right. Building your dress. And then, though, you have a decision. You can either sell it there on the money, on the point, get your coins, and kind of build up that for your other dresses. But one of the other big things that you want to do, and you won't get bonus points immediately.
You don't get money.
You don't get money for it. But you can rent your dress, putting it in 5 different sections on the board of this party. And you are trying to basically have the most people in that party have your dresses, and that's how you win these areas in the game. You can also sponsor fireworks and advertisements and things. That game I try to explain it to everybody about this theme, and they're like, what the heck are you talking about? But when you play the game, it's fantastic.
It's so well done, and it's so thematic on how it does it. The decisions you make, but it's not overtly complicated.
It's not.
I mean, it's heavier.
I was surprised that it wasn't.
It is so good. And the way they work that area control in with where you're trying to rent your dresses, but you're not getting money for it. You're getting your reputation up in certain areas of the ball.
Yes.
Oh, it's
and you're risking delicious. It too, because if you put your dress out there and you don't win that area, I believe that area has also coins on it, right? You get points
for being first, and so maybe for being second, and that kind of thing.
So depending on the dress that you make, you could be gaining a lot more money, but risking it, or you can gain the money now to make a better dress for later.
There's points and money. It's different.
It's really different.
Remember, right? So you can go for the points, but if it's one of those things where you get that engine going.
You got to balance.
And when do you flip the switch to points versus money? And those are always great games that do that right.
And it's just such a great game, and I remember the times we played. It was just really fun. In that moment, this is when you know it's a good game. In the first 2-3 rounds, I'm like, man, I'm seeing it now. This is a great game, and that is why it's on my number 6. Number 5.
Number 5, I think we have a little bit of a crossover by Leader Games.
Yes.
Designed by Cole Weirley, for sure, is Root.
Awesome.
Root is a fantastic game. It's a game where it's set in the woods, in the forest. Your different factions of woodland creatures. So like in a very original game, you've got cats versus birds.
Yep.
But you got all these, basically every faction plays completely different. And it's basically area control, trying to get points. It's asymmetrical to an extreme. Yeah. I mean, you've got, the cats are pretty basic. You're building buildings, you're expanding out. But the birds are completely different the way they play. Yeah. And then you've got these Woodland Alliance. And I'm just talking about the base game. And the Woodland Alliance are like insurgents, and they come behind and they destroy stuff. And then you've got this vagabond. He's just running around doing what he wants. He's helping anybody he wants out, and he gets points for doing that. But then later, in other expansions, you've got, a riverboat faction, and they get money for hiring their people out as as militia, as mercenaries or transporting people on the river. You got this other faction that acts like a cult.
Yeah,
and
the lizard cult.
The lizard cult. They go around and they convert the other factions to their side. It's just...
It's crazy.
It's sick that it's only 5 on my list.
Yes.
And a mention or another bonus is the app that Direwolf made for this. Yes. I believe Direwolf did the app for them.
Yes, Direwolf Digital.
It's sick. The app is so good. It's almost too good because I don't get the game to the table like we should. And there's some expansions. The newest ones we didn't get a chance to play them yet. So it's sick good. I mean, I just enjoy it so much, and I believe...
Yeah, my number 5 is also Root, and exactly what you said is correct. I love this game because even scoring points is different for every faction. It's not the same. And I mean, there's some basic generic things, but really, most of it is not the same at all. And it just creates such a cool environment, such a cool... sort of feel when you're playing the game. I love the story, obviously, behind Root. I like the little, the birds had the kingdom, but then the cats kind of took it away, and the birds are kind of like the rebellion, kind of, running away, but they want to take it over back, and all these different factions kind of have their own little feel into the story, and you're just playing it. And I don't know how Cole Weirley keeps doing it, but every faction is literally completely different than any other faction.
The mechanics is different. It's not just like they have special powers. It's literally the way you play the faction is different.
Even if it looks similar, it's not. It's completely
different the way it plays.
I love it.
And the way it uses the mechanics in the game. Yeah. It's amazingly cool.
And
the way you win, the victory conditions.
Yes, and I love that no matter how many players you're playing in the game, you have to get over 30 points, 30 or more. And when somebody immediately, it's not like after a round, whoever gets the 30 or whoever has the most points wins. It's whoever exactly gets 30 or more points at the end of their turn wins the game. So it's a very tight battle. It's easy. I get that some of the rules can be a little complicated sometimes when you're reading it. But some of the factions, like the Marquise the cats, they aren't too complicated. The birds aren't too complicated. They play like you're coding. Basically, you're coding the birds to every round, do this, do that, do this, and do that. And if you don't do it, you go to turmoil, and you lose it all, and you lose your victory points. It's just... it's so good. It's one of the greatest games of all time. That is why it's on our number 5. And honestly, it's not just our opinion as well. Many people who play board games also love Root, and there is an amazing reason behind that. Because it's a fantastic game, Cole Weirdly, and Leader Games as well. Thank you for making that sweet, sweet trick, because my goodness, it's an amazing, amazing ride for sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to number 4. You're up, I believe.
Yeah, my number 4 is... I think you can get this game now. My number 4 is a historical game. It's a 2-player only game. It's a game made by GMT, who's known for these giant, really deep, little chit games. It's called 1960, The Making of a President. And this game is based off the United States presidential election of 1960, which ended up being one of the closest elections in the history of that country. And basically, it's, you have the Republican Party and their nominee, Richard Nixon, against the Democratic Party and their nominee, John F. Kennedy. And basically what this is using this backdrop as an area control game. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the United States and the they elect the president, basically each state is worth a certain number of electoral votes or points in essence, and you have to have the majority of those points in the end. So what you're trying to do in this game is go around the country and finding some combination of states that gets you over that mark of 270 that you need to win the game. And that means you've got to balance, but it's just like in a real election. You only have so many days before the election. So you're running around trying to, maybe visit a state, and that moves you up that state, or maybe you're trying to spend time in the media, or you're doing things. And a lot of times these cards, you're doing this through card play. A lot of these cards give you something good maybe, but maybe help out the other.
Yes.
So it's usually got 2 actions on it. So you get to do something good for you, but usually it lets the opponent do something bad for or good for them, which is bad for you. And you're trying to play those in a way that the opponent, when he sees that, he can't maximize that as much as this. And you're just, it's a pretty deep game. I'm not going to lie, but it is so good on how it uses this area control, and the board is already seated with the states and their different powers, and you're trying to, like, where do I spend my time? Where do I spend my actions? You know, and each card has a little tidbit of history that happened during that election, you know, news bits that came out or something that happened. And then 3 times during the election, which is how the elections used to be, 3 times during the game you have these debates.
Yes.
So it's kind of a mini game where you're playing cards against each other and who ends up going better. And
that influences your states.
Yeah, because there's different tracks. And if you win, you know, there's the economy. Who's the best candidate for the economy?
Yeah.
Who's the best candidate for the military? Because this was during the time of the Cold War. Who's the best candidate, you know, for social services? And at the end, you might get to add extra cubes to states. You know, or have the opportunity to boost yourself in states if you've won these tracks or you've won these debates. Oh, it's just... It's so good. Neat. It's sick good. I mean, it's amazing.
And the game also takes like 3 hours as
It's like 2.5 to 3. Yeah, it's a long game.
But it's so worth it.
But it's totally worth it.
It's amazing.
I mean, I want to break it out right now.
Just
move this Marvel United to the side and let's go to battle.
Marvel United is my number 8 greatest game of all time.
I'm getting pumped up about my number 4 here. So,
I'm not going to lie to you. It does sound very tempting now when you said that. My number 4 is a game that recently, I believe, came out. Had a lot of hype to it as well. And it was a game that I've played a couple of times. We've played it really a couple of times. And I just really enjoyed it. It's called Kuntahora, number 4. Kuntahora. Kuntahora, it's basically like playing 2 games at once. Or no, like 3 games at once, kind of. You're influencing the market, basically. By doing different things, you're influencing the market to either sell different materials, wood, for example. You could sell it at a high point, or mimic the the money in a way where maybe your opponent doesn't want to sell anymore because you're getting crap for it. You're doing that while you are going like underground, right, and mining different things that give you different points and stuff. You're even building cities and buildings and trying to help the town. Whoever can help the town the best is, you know, like their favorite guy or whatever. I forgot what that was, you know, what that is specifically officially is called. But basically, you're trying to be the most popular guy in town by helping them out, doing different buildings, which is really neat. There's lots of different cards out there that you can get that can give you more bonuses. I love the cards as well. The cards are, on one side, show 2 faces, kind of like a poker card.
That's cool.
And, you know, like the king, for example, like a king card has the head on the top and the head on the bottom. Well, pretend that between that card there is 2 different colors, basically. And depending on how you play the card, I believe you can only pick 2 of these cards. You have to pick the top and I believe both of the tops or something like that. And you play it and you go through your actions, and it's just so cool because sometimes you're just like, wait a minute, I can't do this action, but I can do that, but you don't really want to do that, but it might help you afterwards. So there's just a lot of different strategies into the game. I love, again, the influencing of the market with the buildings, even influencing the buildings that you place down, buying the different types of buildings that can give yourself some more points. I believe there are a couple of end game victory conditions of, like, you know, whoever has the different type of building of this or that, you know, and whatever, and so on and so forth. So you can mimic it in a way where maybe buildings on your opponent's turn can be more expensive for them to play a building or pay one. But you can also influence the market with the materials, and it's just crazy. It really is. The game is just, it feels like every round it's its own little game, and you're trying to do the best to get some points as well. So it's really neat.
The computer thing is cool in it too.
Yes.
Right? Those computers are part of the shtick of the game. So they call it computers, right? But it's basically a way to to level the market and see what the cost of the different goods are when you sell and buy.
Yeah.
Right? It shifts that cost and what something's worth. Because if everybody starts selling silver, the silver price goes way down. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, when do I sell? When do I buy? I think that's so cool in that game.
It was really neat, and just playing it, the experience, and it's an amazing game. Personally, I really, really love it. Well, let's go now to our number 3.
Oh, my number 3 was on your list earlier, and it's Brass. Brass Birmingham, which was kind of the more, I guess, the expanded version of Brass. Brass Lancashire was the original version, designed by Martin Wallace. Brass Lancashire came out years later. And I just, again, for reasons we already talked about, it's getting to a ton, love that game. It's definitely a heavy Euro. You're definitely working on manufacturing, trying to transport different goods. But then you kind of have the switch in the middle of the game where you're going from using barges and riverways to rail. And how that works and what makes possible. That switch in the game is just awesome. It's brilliant. So it kind of has 2 different sides to it. So for me, it's just a classic game. There's a reason it's number 1 on BGG. I've always liked it even before it climbed up here in the last few years. But really, I just enjoy that game so much.
Yeah, it really is a fantastic game. My number 3 is Ark Nova, which I believe was on your list as well, number 6. I love Ark Nova. There was that time when it came out, that hype where everybody was just playing it nonstop. And I thought, well, maybe after a couple of months or a year, that'd be it. But no, completely wrong. Everybody still plays this game. It's one of the most played board games out there right now. Everybody loves it. I love it. Especially for the different decisions that you can make in the game. It's very Euro-y as well. Trying to build your park, right? Trying to build your habitats, build your cages, basically. And then getting animal cards. And it's not just awesome getting a specific animal that you like. There's hundreds and hundreds of amazing animals out there that you can get. But also, like, the type of animals they are, the regions. And that's very important to do other things in the game. If you have the most regions, I believe in the North America region, for example. If you have the most animals there, you get more points and things like that. It's really, really neat. It's a slow burner, but really after a couple of turns or a couple of rounds, you really start getting the hang of it, and that's when you kind of explode with how much money you have and things like that. It's really neat. I love the little actions that you can take, with the cards and using them. Basically, if you don't use an action, that action kind of goes further and further back, making it basically more stronger, that action. So sometimes you want to use an action right now, and it might not give you so much at that moment. But if you just wait a little bit, it could give you a whole lot more, as in, like, more cards, for example, or I believe more researchers or something like that as well.
Yeah, it depends what they are. Each action's boosted. So, that action mechanic selection is great. So you have the 5, you can upgrade them also.
Yes.
But when you use one, it shifts down to, like, the lowest potency, and the other ones shift up. And if you can hold off, you can really push a card up to the 5th level, and it gets the maximum usage, and then it goes to the front, but then something else slides into that 5. If you can really manage that, you really can do great things. Absolutely. Also, it's confusing for a lot of players, but the scoring mechanic is very cool. So you kind of have 2 tracks that start on opposite side of the circle, for lack of a better term, and they slowly start moving towards each other until they cross. And the farther they cross, so one of them's going up, one of them's going down, the farther distance between them after they pass each other, that's how many points you actually get in the game.
Yeah.
So you can't just ignore one or the other. You can be stronger in one or the other. One's like conservation and one's like money, and you can, like, grow them both, but you really gotta make sure they cross, and you get a lot more points for doing that. I think it's just so awesome.
It really is, and what I like a lot about it too is that even if you think you're winning, at some points you might also not feel like you're winning, even if you feel like it. So it really goes down to the wire, this game, and I love that you can really pivot to other strategies if necessary, if there aren't any cards out there. Fantastic game, definitely recommend it. It's amazing. Well, our number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is a Vital Lacerda game. It's Kanban EV. Since I first played that game, I just love it. And Kanban EV, you're basically a car manufacturer. In this version of it, you're making electric vehicles. Mm-hmm. So you have to do all of it. You have to design it's all very obviously abstract, but you're designing the vehicle. You're coming up with a marketing strategy. You have to build the vehicle. You have to sell the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And basically there's like 5 of these actions you can do. And, your worker's on one of them, and the next turn you got to move to another space. Mm-hmm. And if you can move to space in certain areas that are more potent, there's also board reviews. I can't remember what they call the lady's name, but she comes through and checks things out, and, where are you at? She keeps you from going to certain places on the map. The other players can do that too. Mm-hmm. So I just love it. It's Vital Lacerda to me at its best. Now, I haven't played on Mars yet. Or Weather Machine. We have those. Mm-hmm. But I haven't been able to break them out yet. But I've heard on Mars maybe is the one that, maybe by the next time we do this list, I'll hopefully have played on Mars because it's on my to-do. But I just love the choices on this. And there's enough complexity there, but it all makes sense. Like, once you learn the game, it makes sense. I would go here. I would design a car. I would make it better. I would find ways to, pick the right color and sell the colors that people want right now. I would start selling more sports cars because that's what's more popular, or try to foresee that coming. That's how I would envision, a car manufacturer would work. Mm-hmm. And in this game, all that complexity just makes sense. And of course, you're trying to constantly match the market. You're trying to produce, but do so in a way you're not have all your money tied up in inventory. It's just great. Mm-hmm. And I just really love that game. We'll probably need to do a deep dive on it at some point.
Absolutely. It is a fantastic game for sure. My number 2 is a game that was also on your list. I believe, was it number 7? There you go. It is Twilight Imperium. I love Twilight Imperium because as big of a game that it is, just to get 10 points, it is pretty straightforward in a way. It's kind of it takes some getting used to, but I just really love everything about it. It's the kind of game that I like. I really do. Getting a bunch of your armies, conquering planets, and you can battle, but you could also do other things as well that can get you up to 10 points. I love that, playing it on the table, the politics, I guess you could say, on the table is something really serious, Well, I'm not going to join forces with you because you're obviously winning. So I guess, I'll team up with this guy and they'll try to take down somebody or whatever and so on and so forth. And it's just really, really neat. I love, just the scoring. I really do love that. The different missions you can complete. I love how the planets work as well, that they can give you more resources and things like that to play more cards and stuff. It's just, it really has a straightforward sort of feel to the game, but in an epic scale. It's a superhero movie, but it's a Marvel movie, Marvel, sort of takes that to a brink, instead of just a normal superhero movie. It feels like that, this is a nice, awesome 4X game, but Twilight Imperium takes that and times it by 100. I just love the feel playing it. I love the stories. I love sort of, it feels like if you're in a movie, really, when you're playing this, right? Because you're just like, well, it's all just, it's just a great feel. I just love this game so much.
We already talked about it. It's so awesome. And there's all these different factions, and they all have different things. There's even diplomacy in the game. Mm-hmm. You're putting through laws that you vote. And that sounds kind of boring, but it actually impacts kind of how the game plays a little bit. Just add some rules to it that everybody has a chance to vote, depending on how many planets you have. So there's, military values to these planets, but there's political values too. So, that's just another added wrinkle that just adds to the, like you said, epicness of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, it looks amazing. It is amazing. That is why it's my second favorite game of all time right now. Well, here it is, the big moment, our number 1.
Yeah, so my number 1 is, ironically, or strangely, I should say enough, a 2-player game. It's Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion came out a couple years after we got in the hobby. I think it was a few years after. It was earlier in our hobby, the hobby board gaming, and it's Star Wars, the original trilogy in a box. I mean, it captures that so well. You have, basically as you would expect, the Empire versus the Rebels. The Empire has overwhelming power. They have more ships, more resources. They control the galaxy. The Rebels are this scrappy little group. And basically what's happening in this game is the Empire is trying, just like in the movies, to find the Rebel base. And the Rebel base is on one of these systems. The map is a huge map of all these planets, 30 plus planets or systems is what they're called. And in one of these systems, the Rebel base is hidden. And the Empire's trying to find it and destroy it. And if they can do that before the turns run out, the game ends. The Rebels are trying to survive. The Rebels can also do certain things to shorten that turn counter. Because, they're running on missions. Maybe they blow up the Death Star. Maybe they do some kind of thing, and it gets the galaxy kind of getting some hope, and it shortens that turn. That now the galaxy is going to turn on the Empire. And what makes this game cool is just the way it plays. As you expect with Star Wars, you've got dudes on a map everywhere. You've got ships. You've got soldiers. You're running around. But you also have your leaders, and these leaders are just some standees. And on your turn, you can do a couple things. You might have a pool of leaders, and that pool grows every other turn. And you're manufacturing ships as you expect. But what's cool is that leader mechanic. Because on your turn, you have a hand of cards that lets you do certain things that either, helps you gain politically or helps you take over planning or helps you build things or takes down the other system. And on your turn, you play a card or two, how many you want, face down, and you put leaders on those cards. And those leaders are going to execute that mission. And the other player knows you've got leaders on these cards, but they don't know what those cards are and what they're for. Are they political? Are they military? Do they let you make a surprise attack? Certain things like that. You can't put all your people on cards. You can't put all your leaders because you need those leaders also to move ships and do battles that way. So, on your turn, eventually you're flipping a card over and you're like, okay, Princess Leia is going to go run this diplomatic mission, to Kashyyyk, and you put her on there. And, did the Empire players save some leaders to go counteract that? Because now you're rolling against each other and going, and it's just perfect. When you're the Rebels, you're constantly trying to hide. You have a space on the board that represents your base, so you're kind of trying to keep that full, but you need to keep ships out to keep the Empire at bay. If you're the Empire, you're constantly running droids. You're trying to attack planets and run probe droids to find where the planet is, because there's this deck of cards has one for every single planet in the game, and you don't know which one of those cards is under the board. So it's perfect. Every time I play it, I enjoy it. It's a good 2 to 3 hours, so it's not an all-day thing, but it is epic. I don't play it a lot, but that's probably what's kept it fresh for me. They did do an expansion, Rise of the Empire, that included some of the Rogue One. We play with some of that, but we don't. What was nice about that is they changed the combat rules when you do space and land combat to make that a little smoother than what came in the original game. But you don't need it. But those combat rules are nicer that way in some cards. It's awesome. I mean, you can take Luke Skywalker and you can send him on a mission to Dagobah, and you can get him he starts off as kind of episode 4 Luke Skywalker, and you turn him into Jedi Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Or you can send Boba Fett to capture another one of the rebel leaders and turn him to the dark side. You can send Obi-Wan to rescue them. I mean, there's all these thematic things in the game, and it's my favorite game.
It really is.
It's always been my favorite game for years.
It has been.
And I haven't changed on that. There's other games rising to that top 10, but Rebellion's always stays my number one.
Yeah, and to your point, too, because Rebellion is not in my top 10. It's an honorable mention, but it does feel like a Star Wars, right? You've always said Star Wars in a box, really. And when you play it, you do really feel like that. So good job by Fantasy Flight as well that, really did just a great thematic game, especially in Star Wars theme. You have to make that right? So that's amazing. My number one, which might be a shock to some people, but I've played this game. All right, just a little background here. All right.
Cult of the New. Cult of the New.
Anyway, I played this game quite a bit, actually, right when we bought it. It's a game that's been released now for maybe like a month or two. My game is Arcs, okay? Arcs is my number one game, and there is just a lot to love about this game. First and foremost, the time you play this game, right? This game takes at least maybe an hour total, probably, around there. Especially if you already know how to play the game, it could go by quicker. Alright, that's one thing down. Second thing, this game can be played to 2 to 4 players, which is fantastic, and it feels so good playing at all those ranges of players. I've played 2-player games. I've played games with 3 players. I've played games with 4 players. They all feel great. There are some games that just don't. This one does. I love, more importantly, the gameplay Arcs has. In Arcs, it is kind of half a trick-taking game, half area control, half trying to get... There's halves of a lot of mechanics put into this game. One of the main things of taking actions is that there will be a trick-taking round, per se. Somebody will start as the initiative. They'll have the initiative. And you'll have a hand of cards here. Each card is either a different suit or a different number. And you'll play that suit. And in that suit, there'll be several actions that you can perform, depending on how many pegs there are underneath the number. So, for example, if you have a 6 blue, that blue, I believe, if I recall, is a move and a recover, for example. But that doesn't mean you can do that 6 times. There's actually these little pegs underneath the 6. It can range from 1 to 4. And that's how many times you can actually do those actions. What's neat is that if I play a card, obviously we're going to go around the table. You can either follow my suit, or doing the same actions that the initiative card has. You could pass my suit, or you could pass the card that has initiative, meaning that if I played, for example, a 3 blue, and you had a 5 blue, you passed me, now you have the initiative, per se, on the next round, for now. And you can perform the pegs, as many pegs as you have on that card. And that's very important, because if you follow the suit, or play another card that's not the suit, you can only perform that action once. No matter the card, no matter how many pegs there are, you can only do it once. Unless if you surpass the initiative card. So, knowing when to play that, when to take the initiative, and above all, when you want to do those actions that many times, is when you want to play that card. And it's just very neat how that works. I won't get into too much. There's a lot of examples you could go through just with the trick-taking part of the game. But that is basically how a round is played. You go around and you just play one card. You are at times stuck with what you have in your hand, which I know there's been a couple of complaints about the game, is that you're just kind of stuck with it. But I kind of like that, trying to take advantage of what you have in your hand, try to get the most out of it, even if it might not be what you want it to be. I feel like even if I am stuck in a way, I can always find other ways to kind of amp up what I have. Because scoring points is not like your normal end of game or end of round sort of, thing. Basically, what you have to do, you can score up to 3 things. I believe there's 7 actual things out there. It could be whoever has the most captives from influence, whoever has the most defeated ships, whoever has the most oil tokens and other sort of resource tokens as well. And you basically can choose what one you want to score. You can choose the ambition. You can declare ambition and choose which one of those missions, I guess you could say, you want to score. And that can be very great for yourself. You could literally set yourself up to have the most oil. Or if you finished a big battle against somebody, which battles, by the way, are very, very neat. You can, and you've defeated a lot of those ships. Those ships go into your board. And if you have a lot of those, you can make yourself sort of, hey, I'm going to definitely win this, mission. And I just think that is very, very neat about the game. The game goes by, the rounds are really quick, honestly, and just the decision-making of when do I want to score this? Do I have enough, to score it, to take advantage of it? Or, wait, somebody's going to score that, can I go second? Because only the top 2 players get to count on scoring. So can I, somehow get into the podium there? And I just think those decision-makings are just super fun. I love that you can, depending on how much you've built on buildings or cities on your planets, it grows how much materials you can have on your board, which I think is amazing. Which, again, I know I'm going a little too long here, but again, it can also help you get more points. There's a lot to talk about this game, and I won't go on and on about it.
Sounds like a Let's Talk episode to me.
Basically, it kind of is.
No, it's a great game. It is, and I think where some of the frustration, and I don't want to say this, I think somewhere the frustration comes through in the game sometimes, and I would say frustration. It's like one of the top-rated games on BGG, for example. So it's obviously very popular. I think where it is folks come into games like this expecting a little bit, like, I can do what I want. I just got to pick a strategy and go. If I want to attack, I can attack. If I want to, get these, if I want to build up a political victory or get those dissidents and stuff like that, I can do that. And in this game, you've got to kind of play the hand you're dealt, quite literally, in this game. And I think, for me, growing up playing a lot of trick-taking games, you kind of understand how to try and take that. When do I maybe not going to play my favorite card that I want here, but make sure I get initiative the next round? Maybe, how do I manage my hand right? How do I get the other player to get me where I get the lead, where I'm now choosing? Managing that hand's an important part of this game, and marrying that to what you want to do on the board. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what makes this game just awesome. Mm-hmm. And how Cole Wehrle came up with that mechanic and working that out, it's crazy to me. But it is, I haven't played as much as you, which is probably why it hasn't made it up on my list yet, but it is truly an amazing game. And like you said, you get that full kind of experience, but, it's not 3 hours. I mean, you're getting done a lot less than that. Mm-hmm. And I think you've gotten into it more. I haven't even been able to delve into the, kind of the variable player power. So you can add in different races and civilizations that give you different point powers, which lets you kind of lean into that a little bit more.
Yeah, the leader cards. Yeah, those are
cards.
Amazing.
I know the one thing I want to get into is, and we didn't get this because we didn't do the Kickstarter originally, and I'm wishing we had now, but was the kind of the expansion. So getting into the game is actually fairly cheap, the base game. Mm-hmm. The expansion is more of I don't want to say it's like a legacy game, but it's kind of like a campaign. Yeah, but not a campaign that you finish. It's like you get to play 4 missions in a row, 4 games in a row in that campaign, and things that happen the first mission affect the second, or the game affect the second game, etc. Mm-hmm. And then you can redo that, and it becomes a whole new campaign each time. So that looks really cool, and I kind of really want to get into that too.
Yeah, it's just super neat. It just plays really well. I'm a big Cole Wehrle fan. I love leader games. I love Root, which is also, as we discussed earlier, was in our top 10 for a reason. And I love Ark. I love it. Everything about it. It's a game that if you put it out on the table, I'm going to play it. I'm going to have a great time with it. It's definitely something that I've even played with some other family members as well, and they've even loved it and enjoyed it as well, and they're interested in buying a copy. So this game has really gotten a good response with a lot of people, and I loved it. I really did. Yeah, I know it's probably a bit of a shock, but it is our number. It is at least my number 1. Well, ladies and gentlemen, top 10 board games of all time. Tell us what you think about it. Wow. Can you believe that? That was just an hour. An hour for just a top 10 list, and hopefully more top 10 lists as well to come in the future, because we are also planning about that as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the end of the episode. No, I thought I got you there. You didn't? Okay, well, no, we are halfway through there, actually. Let's go to our next segment. Is Tea Time. This is a brand new segment where we basically take 2 to 3 player games that play under 15 to 20 minutes or so in a small condensed area, a little tea time, a little coffee, a little tea, a little dessert, and of course,
coffee shop.
Exactly. And what is the perfect kind of game for that? So we're just going to dive in to a couple of games. It's not technically a review. It's more like, what kind of games, that don't take that much time and you don't need that many people to play. Kind of short and sweet.
It's just something we want to shine some light on. It's just, talking through games like that. Maybe you play, with a spouse or someone, when we started in the hobby, Rose and the family here was just me and Ethan. And we've expanded that a little bit, but, originally we played just us, so we kind of found some games like that. Some of these might end up being a little older games that we liked in the past that we played quite a bit or still play. So when you want to dive us into the game we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in fact, too, a lot of these games in this segment, but also in future segments as well, that Tea Time will also focus on more small box sort of games. So, not bringing Gloomhaven or Frosthaven to a table, something small.
Fit like playing at a coffee shop.
Exactly.
Small cafe, maybe you got 30 minutes, 2-3 players.
Yep.
Something you can take to a restaurant while you're waiting, things like that.
So we found a game that we really enjoy, and we wanted to talk a little bit of, why it fits this theme so well. The game is Jekyll versus Hyde. Jekyll versus Hyde is a 2-player trick-taking game that plays in about 20 or so minutes, even under, I think, 20 or under minutes.
Yeah,
it doesn't take that
20
much.
20 at least, because, we'll get into why, but...
And basically in this game, what you're doing is very, very interesting. As the Jekyll and Hyde player, you are trying to win tricks, but in a way where, like...
Well, so
how does that...
Yeah, so let me describe it. So
you
Jekyll
describe
versus
it. You're
Hyde
better
a
at
little
that.
bit. His designer is Gionil. It's a one-name designer, like Madonna, I guess. Mando Games did this game. And in Jekyll versus Hyde, one of you is... obviously, you're the different personalities of Dr. Jekyll. And Mr. Hyde's trying to take over. And what's happening in this game is you're basically playing... There's 3 kind of suits. You're playing cards against each other. And what Dr. Jekyll wants to do is he wants to control his personality, I believe. And I might have this reversed, but Dr. Jekyll wants to control his personality. So what you're going to do is you're going to... there's like 16 or 20 cards in this hand of 21 cards, I believe is what it is. 1 through 7 each, and there's some different ones. But anyway, there's a deck of cards, and you're not going to see all the cards each round. You're going to play 3 rounds. And what happens is in this game, you're playing one versus the other. And what Dr. Jekyll wants, he wants that at the end of the game, there might be 7 tricks in this game. He wants that, or I think there's 8 tricks in the game. He wants that to be 4-4. He wants it to be as smooth as it can be. And Mr. Hyde wants that different. He wants it to be 8-0 if he can. It doesn't matter if he won 8 or if Dr. Jekyll won 8. He just wants that difference in tricks on each side. He wants that to be as wide as possible. So if it's 6-2 or it's 7-1, that's what he wants. Because what's in the middle of you is this board. And what Mr. Hyde wants is he wants to move that a token along this track. He's got to get it to the end of that board in 3 hands. So you're playing 3 rounds of this. If it's 4-4 at the end, that token doesn't move at all. But if it's 6-2, doesn't matter if Dr. Jekyll won 6 tricks and Mr. Hyde won 2 or vice versa, that token's going to move 4 spaces. 6 minus 2, it's going to move 4 spaces. So can Mr. Hyde get that? So you're constantly, if you're Dr. Jekyll, you're like, okay, you're trying to play like, okay, I want to win some, but not too many. And if you're Mr. Hyde, you're like seeing, is there a chance I can lose a bunch? And you're going to go, or is there a chance I can take control with the lead and take over? And what's kind of interesting about this is there's different, there's 3 suits in the game, like we mentioned, and the order that those suits come out determine which ones are trump, which ones are the more powerful one. So the first time you play a card, it goes on the board. Its suit goes on the board. The last suit to come out becomes the most powerful one. So let's just say it's the red potions. if it's the most powerful one and I play a number 1 of that red potion, and you play a number 8 of the other suit, it won't matter. I'm going to beat you every time. So it's kind of cool how that works. You're trying to manipulate not only who has the lead, which means who's playing the first card if you don't play a lot of trick-taking games, but you're also trying to manipulate, what is trump, what's more powerful. There's also some other kind of wild cards that you can play that have like a cure on them or something, and when you play them, you may or may not win. They don't have a suit on them, but they let you play different powers. Maybe you can steal a trick from the other player, or you can shuffle up what trick has trump, and it's just amazing. But it's a quick back and forth. One time we were in the waiting room, waiting for a family member to come out, and they were just getting some checked up. We were going to be there for a little while. We played it right there in the doctor's office. It's a pretty cool game that way.
Yeah, it really doesn't take that much space either. We even played it at the airport in those little tables there when you're waiting. And it's just it's fast paced, and once you get the hang of how the suit works, and the minority, I believe,
or majority.
No, not the majority. The priority.
The trump is basically what it would be called.
Yeah, and just getting the hang of that, I guess, is the one little tricky thing somebody could get lost in.
It changes each time, which makes it a little complicated. You're right.
But really, once you get the hang of it, I think the game goes by really, really quick. We've played matches that have taken less than 20 minutes. It's just really, really fun trying to... it's very intense. It don't matter what player or what personality you're playing. It's just really intense. Do I lose on purpose? Do I win on purpose? Depending on the cards that you have as Mr. Hyde or Dr. Jekyll, trying to kind of keep it even the entire time. How can you do that with the kind of cards you have in play? It's just, it's super cool. Because even if you have lower cards, it's, well, okay, maybe I do... How do I use the suit? How do I use the trump to affect that? And I think that is really brilliant about the game. I think the game does really smoothly with the trick-taking thing, obviously. It just does really well with it. I like that the board is really, really small. It is really small, so you don't need that much space at all for it. You only need space to just put out, your tricks in front of you that you've won, and just the deck of cards in somewhere in the middle. It really doesn't take that much space as well. So this is something we've taken to a lot of different restaurants and things like that, coffee places even, and it's really fun. It's something kind of light, something that even if you get like a little dessert or something, you don't really get your hands all over those things. I'm kind of picky about that. Maybe some of you are, some of you aren't, but it's just really neat. It's a really fun game. For a tea time game, for a tea party game, whatever you want to call this segment. We're still brainstorming it. Tea time, I believe. Tea time right now is that word. TT. And I think this just really fits that sort of theme that we were following in this segment. I really do.
Yeah, it really does. It's the perfect game for this. And it just really is. It's fantastic. Doesn't have a lot of table presence, but there is that, you got that stress a little bit. That good, juicy stress of, you're Dr. Jekyll, you're constantly trying to keep that even. Mr. Hyde, you're looking for that opportunity to just get those cards going, and then can you max it out? And maybe, sometimes it's like, you're Mr. Hyde, you're barely moving that token, but you have that one good round where you make a huge jump. Or you're Dr. Jekyll, and you haven't been able to keep those numbers even. And you get, it's that token so close to winning the game, and you just somehow get that perfect round where it's like 5-5, and it's 10 tricks, but you get it to 5-5. It's like, hey, you held them to 0. It's just really cool that way. So yeah, it's a fantastic game.
It is, and again, fits really well into that 20-minute span. So it's a great game if you just want to fill up some time or whatever. So it does its part for sure. Now let's go to our next segment here. We're also brainstorming the idea of this segment name as well. What we have so far is digital board, or board digital, something like that. Anyway, basically in this segment, we are going to talk about digital board games, card games that you can buy either on your PC or on, Apple devices, Samsung
tablets
devices,
or phones in general.
Phones, things like that in general. Yeah.
We have Apple devices, that's why we say that.
That's why we say that. Exactly.
Games we talk about, we know are available on there.
Yes. So yeah, there's actually a lot of digital board games out there, as in recently. Direwolf Digital, for example, they've done great games out there. They've done the board game Root digitally, which we've mentioned before, is so good. And there's just so much more. The gaming industry, the board gaming industry is really expanding now to be into our tablets, to our phones, because it's so accessible and it's easy. Sometimes I do want to play Ticket to Ride, for example. Splendor, rolling through the ages, or no, not rolling through the ages. That's right. Galaxy Trucker, or now the brand new game Codenames that also came out on digital platforms.
Everdell, there's a lot. Raiders of the North Sea, and I think that's really why we want to talk about this a little bit. Is the reason I got into games earlier was to have more time around the table talking and chatting, and nothing to me replaces that for me. Right, so I love being at the table, love filling the cards, love laughing and having a good time, and seeing the look on people's faces as things happen in the games. But you are on planes, you are alone, or you want to play a quick game and with no setup. And the digital implementations of these games, some of these games, are so good. And I think the original Ticket to Ride app was kind of one of the first ones that really was popular for me. But man, some of these that we'll get into later, like you said, Everdell. Everdell is just such a great representation of that game, Root, things like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, Direwolf in particular, they're just hitting that out of the park. So I didn't even jump in there, but, it's just, we don't want to spend, this is a board game podcast, so we're sitting there, but obviously there are board game apps out there now, and it's just really fantastic. They're just so good, some of them. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it's also... What's really nice about it, too, is that when you are traveling, sometimes it can be hard to bring some of those big board games that we love, Sometimes we don't have space. We just simply don't, with all the stuff that we have in our bags and stuff. Clothes and phones, tablets, and chargers, everything. There's not enough space to bring your favorite board game along. But on your tablets, digitally, you can. And in this segment, we really want to dive into, is it really worth getting, board games digitally? Is it worth getting a specific board game that you might already have in your collection, but playing it, on the go? Some of those worries if I'll ever bring out, a board game on the table, since it's so easy to just play it online with my friends on the tablet and so on and so forth.
So we want to help with that, right?
Yeah.
We want to let you know what you're getting.
Absolutely.
What's the cost? Do we feel it's, in our opinion, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Where does it fit? Why is it cool to have? And a lot of times we're going to talk about games that we're going to say are yes on that. And we find that there's a lot of value here. So I just think it's going to be a really cool segment to kind of dive into.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of these digital board game apps, too, are also cost money. You have to purchase them. It could be free. It could be $1 to up to $10 now with Dune Imperium. Dune Imperium, the board game, is out. It's literally out, and you can buy it on your phone. But it's $10.99. Is that worth...
For an app.
For that app,
hot,
yeah.
Right? So
is that worth getting? But... is it fun at the same time? Because this is still a board game. It's still trying to feel like a board game in a way. So while we go through...
And we want to give you all of that, right?
Yeah.
So is it good on a screen for a phone versus a tablet versus your computer? Is it good touch? Does it work well? What is good? Did they change some things? Are there things that are different? Are there different modes in it that you can't have on a board game?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things I think is going to be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's even some games out there as well that don't have a physical version for you to buy. Like, for example, Marvel Snap, which is a very popular digital card game there, deck building game. We'll go through some of those games as well, just talking about games that really are deck building games, card games, board games, but they just don't have a physical copy of it that we could buy quite just yet. There's a lot of those great games out there, and just spreading more of that love, more of, just spreading more board games out there for you all to hopefully enjoy. And it's also more easy to access, than sometimes going and finding a good board game place, store, and trying to find a game that you really want. Just giving you an extra option out there that there is this whole other piece in the board gaming community that is being touched just now. It's just now being opened. And boy, it's doing such a good job right now. So we really just want to dive into that and also see if it's really fun, if you should, just really play it, take time to do it, so on, so forth. So on our next episode, stay tuned to that while we talk a little bit more in depth about that Root digital board game. Because, again, we kind of use Root as the standard of how great a digital board game is, because it really, really is. So stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. Super exciting stuff to be said, to be heard in the upcoming episodes, to the road to 200, right? We've just knocked down through 100 episodes of Roster United. Super fun. I'm super happy and very proud, honestly, of what the podcast has become, and I feel like it's going to be even bigger and better, obviously, throughout these next 100 episodes. Yes, you said it there. I said it, yes. The road to 200. What can we expect? Well, obviously, we've just done Tea Time. We've done the digital board. Have so many more segments that we really want to give you all. Because segments really kind of, changes things. That sort of, it's not just let's talk and that's it, or go in depth with something and that's kind of it. We want to expand it more, make it feel more fresh, more new, and even for us, it's exciting to kind of do that. It gives us more of a challenge, really. Like, for example, the Tea Time, to find a game like that to kind of talk about and things, and just obviously give all of you, the audience, sort of more games to talk about, but also where to put them, and so on and so forth. So these next couple of segments, we have obviously the couple of segments that we've talked today. We also have other ones such as mechanics.
Under the hood, right?
Under the hood, there you go, where we look under the hood of a board game and talk to you about a certain mechanic. There, you and I can learn about a certain mechanic that game has. What makes that mechanic special and different from other games? What games have that mechanic that you can compare it, and stuff like that. That it's a really sort of a learning segment. It's something kind of neat.
Difference that we like to add, maybe, and just kind of bring to light. If you like this game with this kind of mechanic, or you like this particular mechanic, hey, here's some other games that we've enjoyed that deploy those mechanics, or maybe deploy them a little bit differently, or why we like a certain mechanic, or what's the good and what's the bad with it. Maybe some examples both ways. Again, from our point of view, something that we might not like how a mechanic is used in a game, you might be like, that's exactly how I like it to be used. So we want to just kind of bring that kind of things. We're talking about potentially, and we're doing this because we just enjoy talking about games, maybe even a YouTube channel where we're discussing and showing some of the games as we get them, or possibly doing some small content for folks to share, like game in 120 seconds. We're just, in a couple of minutes, there's just a quick overview. What is this game about? Would you like it? What are the mechanics? Is it, did we enjoy it? Just giving you just kind of a commercial almost for a game, so you can quickly decide. You're in a Target, you're at the game store. You just want to briefly, understand, or you're heading that way. Just something quick to know what is a game about. Maybe if you want to spend more time digging into it, or if maybe based off of that, you're like, I don't think that's going to be for me and my group.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so much amazing segments that we're planning, we're starting to get, and that we want to share with you all really next week, our next episode, right? And we're super excited about that, which also means, obviously, more reviews. We're also going to do, obviously, the Let's Talk. That's a big part of the podcast as well, where we review a game and give you our rating and opinion on it. And I think that's been something very successful, right? That's really been successful for the podcast. It really, I've seen sort of the growth that people really enjoy listening to the reviews and things like that. Obviously, reviews is something everybody likes to listen to. Video games, music, whatever. I think it's great. So we're going to still continue doing that. We even have a lot of more top 3, 5, and even 10 lists out there for you all. Different categories, crazy lists, just crazy themes. We're super excited to show you all some of those lists that we have there. We also, kind of a big sort of thing that we might try out, because obviously board games are typically in the English language, right? Many people.
But there's
a lot of languages, excuse me,
out there. A lot of folks from different languages play. A lot of the podcasts that we notice, at least that we come across, and obviously because of English, are English speaking and things. So we want to look at the opportunity to reach a different audience potentially as well.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, that's absolutely right. Because there is a lot of people out there, a lot of different parts of the world that also want to tap into board games and just how amazing they are nowadays, especially, and they want to get that feel. So we wanted to kind of spread that sort of love with more people. So we're thinking about recording a couple of episodes in Spanish for all of these Spanish-speaking folks out there, and just kind of talk about games the best possible way we can, but in Spanish. We are fluent in the Spanish language, so we're very excited, really, and anxious to try it out. We know that because we have friends and family members as well that really want to get into more board games and stuff, and they want to know more about it, and we just want to help out. We want to help out those kind of, we want to help out that specific group so they know more about board games, right?
Yeah,
and that's really what we want to do.
And sometimes you're playing with folks that, maybe you're bilingual and you have some games that are in English, but if you have, some Spanish family or friends out there, we have friends that maybe aren't as proficient in English, and good fine folks, and, how does the game play for them, potentially, right? So we're going to talk about that from a Spanish angle, and just in general, do Let's Talk and things like that in Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you, audience, if you guys, have anybody that might speak Spanish, that might just speak only Spanish, let them know that, hey, if you're interested in board games or things like that, hey, we're starting something new. Just let them know, and if they like it, they can continue knowing about more board games, and hopefully we can try to help out, giving the right sort of board games for all of you out there. So it's going to be very, very fun. So we'll try that out. Very exciting stuff. There's obviously more that is still coming up. We're still thinking about more stuff. But right now, that is what it's looking like for the next 200 episodes to come.
Next 100 episodes.
On
the road to 200.
Right? On the road, yeah. Oh, man, I'm off today. Anyway, yeah, so very exciting stuff. And also, before we end this episode, we would like to also say, please follow us on Blue Sky, Roster United, a board game podcast. There, you can follow us. We post a lot of pictures.
And we're at Roster United.
At Roster United. And we have a lot of pictures of board games lately. Obviously, like we've talked about, Marvel Multiverse has come, so we have a lot of pictures of that. It's really, really neat. And a lot of posts and everything, updates, and so on and so forth. So we're super excited about it. And, well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Ethan.
And I am Rick.
And this has been Roster United, our 100th episode special.